You see these numbers everywhere: 720p, 1080p, 4K. They're slapped on every monitor box, every TV listing, every phone spec sheet. But ask someone what 140/40p actually means, and watch them freeze. Ask why 2K is technically wrong, and enjoy the silence. Resolution is the single most marketed number in displays. It's also the most misunderstood, and the gap between what people think they know and what's actually going on is enormous. From ancient standard definition to absurd 8K, this is every screen resolution explained. Pixels. Before any resolution makes sense, you need to understand these. A pixel is the smallest dot of color your screen can display. That's it. Every image you've ever seen on a screen is millions of these tiny squares packed tightly together. Resolution is simply the count. It tells you how many pixels fit across and how many stack top to bottom. A 1920 by 1080 screen has 1,920 columns and 1,080 rows. Multiply those and you get roughly 2 million dots painting your picture. Think of it like a mosaic on a wall. Fewer tiles means a blurry mess. More tiles means sharper detail. The P in 720p or 1080p just refers to the vertical count. 1080p means 1,080 rows of pixels tall. That's the whole naming convention. You don't shop for pixels directly, you pick a resolution and the count follows. The biggest misconception right out the gate is that more pixels always equals better. A 4K screen with washed-out colors will still look worse than a solid 1080p panel. Pixels are just the grid. What fills that grid matters just as much. 480p. This is where most of us started without realizing it. 480p means 640 pixels across and 480 pixels tall. That gives you about 307,000 total pixels. For reference, your phone has roughly 40 times that. Standard definition ruled TVs, DVDs, and early YouTube for years. It was the default. Nobody questioned it because nothing better existed to compare it to. Like eating cafeteria food your whole life and thinking it was fine. Then you tried a real restaurant. 480p was perfectly acceptable on small CRT screens because those displays were naturally soft. The low pixel count didn't stand out. But stretch 480p across a modern 27-inch monitor and it looks like someone smeared Vaseline on your display. The only spec that matters here is total pixel count. At around 300k pixels, there's almost no detail by modern standards. You'd never buy a 480p monitor today. But understanding it matters because every resolution above this is measured against it. The common mistake is thinking 480p was always terrible. It wasn't. It just can't survive on modern screen sizes. 720p. This was the resolution that changed the game. 720p means 1,280 by 720 pixels. That's just under a million total. When HD first arrived, it felt like putting on glasses for the first time. The jump from 480p was staggering. Suddenly you could read scoreboard text during sports. Faces in replays were actual faces, not blurry ovals. 720p was the gateway drug to high definition. On smaller screens, it still holds up surprisingly well. A 720p image on a 13-inch laptop looks perfectly sharp. Your eyes simply can't pick out individual pixels at that size and distance. The number that matters is pixel density relative to screen size. On anything under 20 inches, 720p is still serviceable. Past that, it falls apart fast. Budget laptops still ship with 720p class panels today. That's not a feature. That's a cost cut. If you're shopping and see a 15-inch laptop listing 1366 by 768, that's basically 720p wearing a trench coat and trying to sneak into a movie. The myth is that 720p is unwatchable. On the right screen size, it's genuinely fine. 1080p. This is the resolution that refuses to retire. 1080p means 1920 by 1080 pixels. That's about 2.07 million total. Full HD has been the default standard for well over a decade. It's still the most common resolution in gaming, streaming, and everyday work. It's the Honda Civic of resolutions. Reliable, everywhere, and impossible to kill. For gaming, 1080p is where your GPU gets to breathe. You can push higher frame rates without needing an expensive card. A mid-range graphics card at 1080p handles almost anything at high settings. That's the real appeal. The important spec is the performance-to-pixel ratio. At 1080p, you're not demanding much from your hardware. That means smoother gameplay and cheaper builds. On a 24-inch monitor, 1080p is the sweet spot. Sharp enough to look clean, light enough to run fast. Push it to 27 inches though, and you'll start seeing pixels, especially in text. That's where it shows its age. If you're still gaming at 1080p and loving it, drop that in the comments. No shame at all. The mistake people make is calling 180p bad because higher numbers exist. It's not bad. It's just not trying to impress anyone anymore. 1440p. This is the resolution that quietly became the best choice for most people. 1440p means 2560 by 1440 pixels. That's about 3.7 million total, roughly 78% more than 1080p. The jump in clarity is immediately obvious, especially in text and fine edges. Everything just looks crisper. It's like switching from a decent pair of glasses to a perfect prescription. For gaming, 1440p hits the sweet spot between visual quality and performance. You get a real upgrade in sharpness without your GPU bursting into flames. A solid mid to high-end card handles it comfortably. The spec that matters most is the pairing with screen size. 1440p on a 27-inch monitor is chef's kiss territory. Sharp, clean, and beautifully scaled. On a 32-inch panel, it still works but starts thinning out slightly. Now here's the big one. The most common mistake is calling 1440p 2K. It's not. 2K actually refers to 2048 by 1080, a digital cinema standard. 1440p has 2560 horizontal pixels. That's closer to 2.5K if anything. The internet got this wrong years ago and just kept running with it. If you're building a PC right now, 1440p is probably exactly where you should land. 4K. This is the resolution that marketing departments fell in love with. 4K means 3840 by 2160 pixels. That's about 8.3 million total, exactly 4 times the pixel count of 1080p. The name comes from the roughly 4,000 horizontal pixels. On a big display, 4K looks absolutely stunning. Fine textures pop. Text is razor sharp. High-quality footage feels like looking through a clean window. But here's what nobody in the store tells you. On a 27-inch monitor at normal desk distance, the difference between 4K and 1440p is subtle. Like squint and maybe you notice it's subtle. Where 4K genuinely shines is content creation and larger screens. Photo editors, video producers, and anyone on a 32-inch panel or bigger will see real benefits. For gaming, 4K is beautiful but demanding. You need a high-end GPU to push playable frame rates. The key spec is raw GPU horsepower required. 4K needs roughly 4 times the processing power of 1080p. That's not a casual ask. The common myth is that 4K is always the better buy. It's not. If your screen is small or you sit far back, those extra millions of pixels are literally invisible to your eyes. You paid for sharpness you cannot physically perceive. 8K. This is the resolution that exists mostly to flex. 8K means 7680 by 4320 pixels. That's about 33 million total. 16 times the pixel count of 1080p. The numbers are absurd. And right now, almost nobody needs this. 8K TVs exist. They're expensive. Content for them barely exists. Most streaming services cap at 4K. YouTube supports 8K technically, but good luck finding anything beyond a few nature demos. It's like buying a car that does 300 miles per hour. Impressive on paper, but where exactly are you driving it? The spec that matters is content availability. Without native 8K media, the TV just upscales lower resolutions. You're paying a premium for the panel to guess what extra pixels should look like. For gaming, 8K is pure fantasy on current hardware. No consumer GPU handles it at reasonable frame rates. The myth here is that 8K is the future arriving early. It might be eventually. But right now it's a showroom feature, not a living room reality. Ultrawide. This is the resolution category that threw out the rulebook on screen shape. Ultrawide monitors don't just add pixels vertically, they stretch the image wider. The most common ultrawide resolution is 3440 by 1440. Same vertical pixel count as standard 1440p, but with roughly 33% more horizontal space. It's like going from a regular window to a panoramic one. You see more of the world without zooming in. For productivity, ultrawides are game changers. 2 full documents side by side. No alt-tabbing. Coders love them. Video editors love them. Anyone who's ever wrestled with window management loves them. The key spec is aspect ratio. Standard monitors are 16 by 9. Ultrawides run 21 by 9. That wider ratio is the whole point. For gaming, ultrawide is immersive but inconsistent. Some titles support it beautifully, with expanded field of view. Others just stretch the image or slap black bars on the sides. Compatibility remains a real issue. The mistake people make is assuming wider is universally better. Watching a movie with letterbox bars on a screen you bought specifically for extra width is deeply ironic. Know what you're buying it for before you spend the money. Aspect ratios. This is the spec everyone ignores until it ruins their experience. An aspect ratio is just the shape of your screen. It describes the relationship between width and height. A 16 by 9 ratio means the display is 16 units wide for every 9 units tall. That's the modern standard. Older screens used 4 by 3, which is closer to a square. If you've ever watched a classic TV show with black bars on both sides, that's a 4 by 3 image sitting inside a 16 by 9 frame. Think of it like picture frames at a store. A landscape frame and a portrait frame can hold the same amount of canvas, but the shape changes everything about what fits. The important thing to grasp is that aspect ratio and resolution are completely independent. You can have a 1080p image in 16 by 9 and another in 21 by 9. Same vertical pixels, different horizontal count. 2 separate measurements. The common mistake is mashing resolution and aspect ratio together. A wider screen doesn't mean higher resolution. It might just mean the same pixels spread across a different shape. Sharpness and shape are 2 very different conversations. PPI. This is the number that actually tells you how sharp a screen looks in real life. PPI stands for pixels per inch. It measures how tightly packed those pixels are on the display surface. Higher PPI means smaller, denser pixels. That means sharper text, smoother curves, and less visible grid pattern. It's the difference between a glossy magazine photo and a newspaper print. Same concept, wildly different quality up close. Here's why this matters more than raw resolution. A 1080p phone screen at 5 inches has a PPI around 440. Incredibly sharp. A 1080p monitor at 27 inches has a PPI around 82. Noticeably softer, same exact resolution, completely different visual experience. The key spec is the combination of resolution and screen size together. Neither number tells the full story alone. A 4K laptop at 14 inches has insanely high PPI that your eyes can barely appreciate. A 4K TV at 65 inches has just enough PPI for normal viewing distance. The myth that gets me every time is bigger screen means better picture. Not if the resolution stays the same. A bigger screen at the same pixel count just means bigger pixels, and bigger pixels mean fuzzier everything. Interlaced versus progressive. This is what the I and P in 1080i and 1080p actually mean, and almost nobody explains it properly. Progressive scan draws every row of pixels in a single pass, top to bottom, all at once, every frame. Clean and complete. Interlaced scan only draws half the rows per pass. It alternates between odd rows and even rows. Each half is called a field. 2 fields combine into one full frame. Broadcast TV used interlaced scanning for decades to save bandwidth. It was a genuinely clever trick. Send half the picture, then the other half, and the human brain fills in the gap. Like flipping between 2 slightly different photos really fast. The critical spec is that 1080i and 1080p have identical pixel counts but very different motion clarity. 1080i looks fine on still images, but throw in fast motion and the trick falls apart. You'll see combing artifacts. Those weird horizontal lines during sports or action scenes. The mistake is assuming 1080i equals 1080p because the number matches. They are not the same. Progressive is always cleaner for moving content. If you spot an eye in a resolution spec, just know you're getting the budget version of that pixel count. From blurry 480p mosaics to absurd 33 million pixel 8K panels, screen resolution has come a wild long way. We learned that the P just means rows, that 2K is basically a myth the internet refuses to correct, that PPI matters way more than most people realize, and that ultrawide is glorious right up until your movie has black bars anyway. Resolution is just a number. What actually matters is how it pairs with your screen size, your viewing distance, and your setup. So what resolution are you running right now, and are you actually happy with it? Drop it in the comments. If this video helped clear things up, a like genuinely helps the channel more than you'd think. Next up, I'm breaking down every display panel type: IPS, VA, OLED, Mini LED, and why the panel matters even more than the resolution. Click the video on screen right now.